Okay, looks like we're going. I got glasses, that's good. All right. We're here for episode 4, and in this one, I'm going to discuss an article on evolution that I wrote that's in the current MUFON journal. Here we go. This one. Evolution Happens. And before I start in, I wanted to talk about a couple of things. When I write these articles, well, it's been months since I've written them, so I kind of keep learning things as I go. So things that I thought were important when I wrote the article, um, I've learned more about that stuff as time goes along. And so there may be emphasis on something different now when I talk about it than what there was when I wrote the article. And sometimes yes, sometimes not. Let's see, what was I going to tell you? No, it skips my mind now. Anyway, oh, I know. It's that when you get a chance, you really ought to read the articles if you can, because they've been edited and rewritten and proofread and all that sort of stuff. And by the time you condense all of this down to 1,500 words, it's a pretty concise article. And so I'm trying to be engaging, entertaining, and informative in less than 1,500 words. And that's an entirely different thing than me just discussing the quotations that I've used in the article with you. It's an entirely different experience if you want to read the article. I really recommend it. So, I'm no good at small talk, so I thought we'd talk about something worthwhile. And I grew up with the evolution thing. There was 2 points of view. It was either creationism or evolution. And the evolution side is that men evolved from apes and they're looking for the missing link. I mean, it reminds me of the Scopes monkey trial from the early 20th century. And hop up here, buddy. There you go. And these writings offer a clear alternative to those things. Let's see. Oh, well, one thing I note in here this writing is that when I was back in like junior high school, we had shop, and they taught me how to wire a circuit. And I'm pretty good at wiring a circuit. I mean, I wired this building. And I thought that when you closed the circuit, that was so that electrons could flow along the wire. And it turns out they don't. And science has known this since the 19th century. But they didn't bother to tell me or anybody else in the class that that's not exactly what was going on. It's because of a fellow by the name of James Clerk Maxwell and his equations, and John Henry Poynting and his vector describe what electricity is really doing in those wires when you close the circuit. I mean, I still don't fully understand. But also it made me wonder, concerning electricity, why energy is free when it leaves the sun, but after it gets here, I get a bill every month from the electric company who's basically reselling me the sun's energy. I'm not sure why that works that way either. But Gandhi had a similar problem in India way back, and so he took everybody down to the seashore and they made salt because the English at that time had a monopoly on salt. But there was actually salt everywhere. And Gandhi knew that, and by getting all the people to go make their own salt, he proved it to them. And it's sort of like energy. I think energy is probably everywhere as well. And at some point, we'll probably figure that out. So, to start the article off proper, I mean, I discuss those things in the article. And lots of times when I'm writing these things, I'll throw in things that I think just are thought-provoking. I don't necessarily know what I really think about them, But we have to remember to ask intelligent questions, and sometimes we take so much for granted that we forget what we should question. So I'm going to use this quotation again, and I've used it in this is the third time I've used this quotation in an article for MUFON, out of the first 4, believe it or not. And it's this one. We cannot say then that there was a time when man was not. At most we can say there was a time when this earth did not exist, and at the beginning man was not present upon it. And so what that's saying, as I've said before in the earlier episodes, is man, whatever that is, predates Earth, and Homo sapiens, whatever we are, does not. So let's see here. I've also found another source, a well-qualified outside source I refer to, and I'll give you that guy's name. He is Matthew Cobb of Cardiff University School of Medicine. And he says evolution is messy and complicated. There are more fossils to be found. Ancient DNA has changed the way we view ourselves and our close relatives. And I mentioned in the article things that are messy and complicated. But there's another quotation here, an important one. Dost thou think thyself only a puny form when the universe is folded up within thee? Dost thou think thyself a puny form when the universe is folded up within thee? And in the article, I mentioned having folded tortillas and pizza and how messy that is. And so folding the universe within each of us is bound to be messy too. So, going on, looking for more things that have an impact on the idea of evolution, found another quotation. Religion must stand the analysis of reason. It must agree with scientific fact and proof, so that science will sanction religion and religion fortify science. I mean, we hear that all the time. I mean, every day, everywhere, right? Sure. Both are indissolubly welded and joined in reality. And I think that's a real important point here in July of 2022. Religion and science are indissolubly welded and joined in reality. If statements and teachings of religion are found to be unreasonable and contrary to science, they are outcomes of superstition and imagination. So, this is not to be unexpected of writings that say that truth is one. So we know that evolution is a thing, scientifically. And I go on to postulate, what will this man is infinitely old, these writings that say that, what will they have to say about evolution? Before long, I found this. Briefly, the evidences of intellect or reason are manifest in man. By them, he is differentiated from the animal. Realizing this, we may acknowledge the fact that at one time, man was an inmate of the sea. At another period, an invertebrate, then a vertebrate, and finally a human being standing erect. Though we admit these changes, we cannot say man is an animal. Proof of this lies in the fact that in the embryo, man still resembles a worm. This embryo still progresses from one state to another, assuming different forms until that which was potential in it, namely the human image, appears. Therefore, in the protoplasm, man is man. Conservation of species demands it. Now, there's still more to add to this. What are they talking about when they say man as opposed to when they say human? And there's a whole article on that coming up in a little while. Anyway, I take this verse to mean these writings don't expect anyone to find a missing link, and there is a difference between being in agreement with what science can prove and what science can theorize or won't theorize about. Okay, let's see. I go on to mention a few other things, and then three that they're good for the article, but right now they don't make sense to me, so I'll leave them out. You can read them at your leisure. And three, quote, the science of evolution is accepted, but the conclusion that humanity is merely an accidental branch of the animal kingdom, with all its attendant social implications, is not. So, my opinion drawn from this quotation from these religious writings is that evolution is occurring all the time, although man has always been around. I think it's just that the building blocks of life are everywhere. The universe is infinite, these writings say. And so anywhere that these building blocks all show up, life starts. Maybe there are people there. Maybe this evolution is going on Earth as we sit here. We simply don't know. So, I go on here to talk about evolution of thought. Evolution is basically just things changing. Thought and questions seem to be accelerating at internet speed. And these writings mention, I don't think I've got a quotation for it here, but questions are deemed an attribute of God. That's the height to which questions are elevated by these writings. And again, I don't care whether you believe in God, I don't care whether you believe what the writings say, I'm just offering you what they have to say about this particular topic, because you may not have heard it before. Okay. Where do we go from here? An evolution, okay, and it is, quote, from the writings, an evolution that has had its earliest beginnings in the birth of family life, its subsequent development in the achievement of tribal solidarity, leading in turn to the constitution of the city-state, and expanding later into the institution of independent and sovereign nations. That little quotation just gives you a brief of how thought about human association has evolved as well over time, and much more quickly than physical evolution, for sure. And according to these texts, it is still expanding. But expanding into what? They will offer as a solution to that the principle of the oneness of mankind. And I talk about that in one of the previous episodes, Why Hasn't E.T. Left Already? It's because the writings say that this evolution into the oneness of mankind is about to hit a tipping point, and that would be something important enough for E.T. to be here to see how it happens this time. And no one alive has ever seen that. It's an experiment on a grand scale. So, still, you and I are part of this evolution as we push open the sides of our particular box and try to think outside of it as much as we are able. It's regarding cryptids, UFOs, etc., and those of us who've actually seen them, as the adults in the room, we don't need someone else's permission to believe what we already know is true. It's okay and important to know about these phenomena, and it's a big part of the evolution of thought thing. If we're going to get beyond where we are now to the oneness of humankind, if that is in fact what's coming, then we need to clearly understand what the universe really is and what's really going on here on the planet right now, because there may be a lot of stuff going on, I think, that nobody's talking about, and we don't even know why yet. And so that's basically the argument. There are the deniers, detractors, disinformation spreaders are the same people who told us electrons flow along wires and we have to buy our salt from the East India Company. None of that is necessarily true. So there you go. I've got a real punchy ending in the article, but that's the gist of what I'm talking about. So I guess to sum up, mankind has always been here, these writings say, and evolution is also occurring. But not, animals are not becoming human. Humans are becoming human. And we don't exactly know what sets them apart when evolution starts. But we know that the rational human mind is what sets us apart from the animals once we get to the point where that develops. So, here are the references used in the article, right there. And I've got the link to the library where all these writings are at the very bottom, right there. And if you're a member of MUFON, you can read this article for yourself in the July MUFON Journal. So, I hope this was informative, and I hope you liked it. And if you did, I will see you later. Until next time, I'm Grant House. Bye.